I'm in Queens right now, and I was sitting by my bike, just having a drink and just eating a little something. And somebody asked me, "What is that bike?" And I said XR 650. Some people either know it, some people don't. And he was like, "How do you like it?" So it's pretty good in the city. I have no issues with it. And there's some people that know it and they're like, "Oh, I wouldn't ride that in the city. It's no ABS, all that stuff." So there's different comments that come up, and all of them have valid points. So the question, I was thinking about it for new riders, it must be confusing because, like, I can't tell you how many countless people have come up to me, young guys, and they'll be like, the guys at Jersey Mike's even were like, young guys, and they were like, "How do you ride that dirt bike around without getting hassled?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Well, it's a dirt bike, it's not street legal." And I said, No, it's an XR 650L, it's 50 state street legal. And they really, I didn't even know that. So they had no idea. They actually didn't know that it was street legal. I'm just taking this way because the road is totally jammed up. So yeah, new riders wouldn't know. Like, they would be totally confused, and I don't blame them because you don't know what's available, what's right, what's not. What's a good bike? There's a lot of Chinese bike. I was in Florida one time, and this guy at the Harbor Freight was looking at my K-Line, and he was like, "Man, I love that." And he was, "I bought a Hawk 250, and I'm regretting it." So I guess shit like that happens too. People buy things and they realize, someone's trying to call me, so I'm going to pull over here and just check it out. Hold on, guys. Usually I don't get calls too much at this time of day unless there's an emergency, so let me just check it out. See what the missed call is. So yeah, I mean, it's very confusing for new riders to figure out what the right bike is. And there's all kinds of nice bikes, that you can get that have much better features than this XR 650. Continuing my video before where I was talking about what kind of bike you should get. And that really depends upon what your driving conditions are going to be and how many months out of the year you're going to be riding, if you're going to be parking in the street or not, things like that. It's all going to come up. It's all pertinent, information. I think these driving conditions are better in a dual sport, but not everybody likes riding a dual sport. Like, my neighbor has a Ninja 400, loves sport bikes, and he drove on this bike. He didn't really like it. Didn't really have a liking to it, he just said it just didn't feel planted, the way his Ninja 400. And this guy up in front of me, he's on a sport bike. Sport bikes are fun, man. I had one. I had an FC8 that I used to ride around the city on. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then anytime you want to show off a little bit, you could totally fucking do it on that bike. It was hot though, you know, the heat coming up off the heat coming off of the bike was quite significant. I didn't like that. Whereas I don't get that on the XR. My XR doesn't overheat at all in this city. Even a hot, humid day like today. I don't have problems with that. So you have to think it over. I mean, do you like sport bikes? Get a sport bike. You're not going to be able to ride that all year round though. Definitely not going to be able to ride a sport bike all year round here, but you can ride most of the year. You can ride all the way up into December, and then they start salting the roads. It's just going to wreak havoc on your bike. It's just not good for a sport bike, you know, unless you're going to really keep on top of it. Park in the garage. You can have like a washing kit, you know, so you can get that salt off of there. But if you're just going to be roughing it like a street rat, like the way I do, you're going to be crying seeing what's happening to your bike. Your $12,000 machine just getting beat to shit, you know, and that's not good. That's not good at all. Seeing that. That's scary. The damages that happen to your bike, you know, it's just going to be significant. Oh, I was wondering what that was. He had a dog on the back. They had a Rottweiler on there. I thought it was a person at first. I was like fucking like losing my mind. I didn't see any legs. So that makes sense. It's got a Rottweiler on there. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I gotta go up to Harlem right now. Check out a system up there. That was a guy who was calling me before that I killed the video on, and then because it was an emergency. So basically, it's very confusing. A lot of guys don't even know that the XR is even street legal. I get that question all the time from young guys that don't know. They're like, "Man, it's a cool bike, but I just wouldn't want to be hassled." I had a guy from Jersey Mike's said that to me. He was like, I just wouldn't want to be hassled riding around. And it happened to be in Jersey. I was just coming over the GW Bridge, and I stopped to get Jersey Mike's in Fort Lee. Jersey cops are not the nicest. I mean, there's times where you're going to need to make a decision, you know, because they could fuck with you big time, man. Those Jersey cops would take your bike away. Be very careful dealing with Jersey cops. But anyway, get back to my point about what kind of bike you're going to get. It really depends on what kind of bike you like to ride. Don't get a dual sport just because you know it's going to be the right machine for New York, and then you're going to hate it. That's no good either. You got to get a machine that you enjoy. You know, like I personally love dual sports, but not everybody is like that. You know, some guys love sport bikes. You know, and if you love sport bikes and you get on a dual sport, it's kind of disappointing. It doesn't have anywhere near the RPM range that a sport bike has. It doesn't have the lean angle. Well, you could lean a dual sport pretty low to the ground, but I mean, you're gonna scrape some foot pegs with a sport bike. You can have some fun with that, Those are things that you do on a sport bike. And if I was in LA, I almost would have to lean towards a supermoto or some kind of sport bike. I would need that in LA because you do so much riding in the mountains, and so much freeway stuff that it's really a chore to be on a dual sport just screaming around, on the highway. It's just not fun, And believe me, I've done it, but it's just not something that you could say is fun. There's nothing fun about it, cruising on the highway on the 405 or any of these big highways with 4 or 5 lanes, 6 lanes, and you're just cruising along on a dual sport doing 70, 80 miles an hour, and you think you're doing fast, and then somebody in a car just fucking blows past you. That's not fun either. You want to be on a sport bike in that environment. Yeah, a sport bike is better. And there are times in New York where you'd want to be on a sport bike. But for the most part, in New York City, 5 boroughs, a dual sport is plenty of power. I mean, more than enough power for you to even show off when you want to. Because how fast can you really go in New York, So 90 is like insanity, But 90 on a freeway in California is nothing, I mean, one good thing about a dual sport is if you have a fucked up license, you're not going to get in any problems with a dual sport. And generally, I find like cops don't really mess with dual sports too much in New York. They leave you alone. But people with sport bikes, they definitely have an eye on you. Especially like highway cops and things like that. They see you on a sport bike, they got a hard on for you. So that's another factor that you have to consider. But all of these things don't really matter because if you gotta go with the bike you want. You could let people talk to you about all the pros and cons, but if you love Harleys, if you love sport bikes or you love whatever it is you love, and then someone's telling you about all the pros and cons, and then you're like, nah, man, I don't want a dual sport, then you're gonna be like pissed off if you get one. You're not gonna be happy. Nobody wants to be talked into something. They want to talk about what they want to have, what you feel comfortable on. And you'll make it work either way, You can put some aggressive tires on a sport bike. If you want to ride a sport bike all year round in New York, you can do it. You just put some aggressive tires on it. You can find a good tire that'll be able to carry you through. Because that's where it's critical, the tires that you choose are going to be really important. Really, really important. Your tires are going to be everything. For me, my tires are everything. The stock tires that come on the KLR, they're no good. They're not a good tire in the all weather, in the rain. They suck. So you got, like all these things, it takes time to learn. You'll figure out what tire you like. I happen to like Kendas. They're pretty good. And they're not perfect, but they're not super expensive, but they're not Chinese cheap like Shinkos. And they don't chunk out on me. And they work well in all kinds of weather conditions. So that's one good thing. So anyway, let me know in the comments what bikes you're interested in. I'll let you know what I know about them. I have a lot of experience on dual sports like DRZ 400, DR 650, KLR. I've had all revisions except for the new one. I've had sport bikes. I've had, all those different options. Fucking hell, man. So yeah, I've had many different bikes, and I could give you some input on them, and I'm very interested in switching up soon to some, electronic rider aids. I want traction control. I want ABS on my next dual sport. I think it's the way to go, and I think the technology is where it's, where it should be. But I don't want a bike that's going to fall apart in the salt and the weather. So that's going to be something to think about too. I could use some advice from other people. So you always need advice. That's one thing you're going to find out too. You always need advice on riding, because there's always somebody that's figured out something or went through something that you haven't. Like, years ago I talked to a guy about an F800 GS, and he warned me. He said the parts on that bike, there's a lot of stuff made in China, and I didn't even heed his warning because it just looked so good. I said, yeah, man, I got to get an F800 GS. And I'll tell you what, that bike didn't last a year in New York. I mean, with the potholes, the rough road conditions, that F800 GS, which was a 2012 model, brand new, just completely fell apart in New York, to the point where I had to do like an insurance thing on it. This XR has given me zero issues, because of how simple it is. I mean, the bike is such a simple technology. It's actually old technology, though, and that could be a put-off to some people. It still uses a carburetor, has a choke where you got to choke when you want to start the bike. Those are things that, definitely I know some people that'll be put off by. So you have to consider, those things when you're buying a bike. Do you want rider aids? Do you want traction control? Do you want rider modes? Where you can, if it's raining, you just push a button and put it in rider mode. I want that. I'm gonna get that on a bike, but I'm not gonna park that bike in the street, and I'm not gonna subject it to the salt and destruction of winter. This bike, unfortunately, have to be the one that's going to take it all. So there you go. You got, like, if you want one bike to do it all, that's another thing you're going to have to think about. If you're going to buy a bike for 12 grand that's got all the rider modes and all the gizmos that you want, and if it's your only bike, every time that bike's fucked up from salt in the road or whatever, this thing stops working, or this electronic thing stops working, and you can't drive the bike for whatever reason, then you're going to be bringing it to service, and it's going to be down for you at that time. That's going to be a problem. Like for me, having my bike down cost me money big time. That's why I used to always have two bikes, and I lost my KLR doing, it got totaled. So I don't know, what I would say to people. I want to have 2 bikes again. I need that. I need that protection for my work. I just don't have that option right now because my KLR got totaled and the money just went up, up in smoke for other things. That shit just happens. Shit goes down like that, you can't help it. Hell, I'd even get another XR, just to have a backup bike. I'd have to probably do the same setup on it as this